Hi again, everyone. It is 5 o'clock here in New York. I'm Ayman Wahideen in for Nicole Wallace. We are continuing to track the breaking news out of the Middle East that a U.S. F-15 fighter jet was shot down earlier today in Iran. Here's what we know at this hour. 2 U.S. officials confirm that one of the crew members has been rescued. A massive search and rescue operation remains underway for the other American who was on board. That mission is in a race against the clock to try to rescue that service member before they are captured by Iran. Iranian state TV says authorities are asking residents to find the other American. The status of that service member has been labeled by the U.S. as duty status whereabouts unknown, which indicates that the U.S. military does not have reason to believe at this time that the second U.S. service member has been captured. As for what the search and rescue mission that is currently underway might look like, here is what former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta said earlier.
This is dangerous stuff. It's very risky. You're in the middle of an adversary during a time of war. And so whatever we use to conduct the search and rescue operation is going to be targeted by the Iranians. But I can assure you of one thing. Everybody in the U.S. who's there in that area knows that you cannot leave our people behind to be captured by the Iranians.
Now, NBC News reports that according to a U.S. official, 2 U.S. military helicopters that were involved in the F-15 search and rescue efforts were struck by Iranian fire, but the service members are still safe. Today marks the first loss of a jet inside of Iran, and it is a significant escalation to an already deeply unpopular war here, revealing the risks that U.S. service members continue to face. That risk further underscored by a second combat plane that went down earlier today. 2 U.S. officials with knowledge of the matter tell MS Now that the plane crashed near the Strait of Hormuz and that the plane's pilot was successfully rescued by American forces. Now, these major developments are happening against the backdrop of a war that appears to be escalating. On Thursday, the U.S. military carried out an attack on a highway bridge near Tehran. The New York Times reports that the bridge was struck twice. It is the first U.S. attack on civilian infrastructure in this war, and it comes after Donald Trump's threat to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age. And looming over all of this is the Monday deadline that was set by Donald Trump for Iran to reopen that strait, the Strait of Hormuz, before he says the U.S. will begin strikes on Iranian power plants. And that is where we begin this hour with retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. Also with us, BBC U.S. Special Correspondent, contributor Katty Kay, and staff writer for The Atlantic covering national security, Nancy Youssef, is here as well. General Anderson, I'll start with you and this search and rescue operation and what that might look like. Take us inside to what is happening right now with some of those forces on the ground or forces in the region as they continue to identify where this second crew member might be.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think the first thing to remember is that they're a long ways away from any American bases. I mean, so they're going to have an extensive logistics capability to be able to essentially loiter and look for this guy. I mean, obviously, finding where he is the most important thing. But, you know, we've got incredible capability in regards to Pave Hawk helicopters and A-10 aircraft that can be used to provide cover. And the whole procedure would be run by an HC-130, which would also have a refueling capability, so allow the helicopters to loiter a little bit longer. And of course, MQ-9 Reapers surveillance drones are going to be very active. The good news is that it's becoming dark. And my understanding is these pilots or this weapons systems officer probably has a set of night vision goggles. And that would give him some advantages to staying alive in a contested area. But, you know, it's obviously a race against time. The IRGC wants to get him. There would be tremendous political advantage. I mean, there already is with 2 shootdowns today. But to be able to capture someone and to have a hostage would be tremendous political points for the regime. And, you know, this is just more evidence that this is the greatest geopolitical disaster, I believe, in the history of America. Donald Trump has stuck his hand in the middle of a hornet's nest. He doesn't know how to get it out, and we've got a long way to go.
You talk about this as being a blunder, and I was wondering if you can help us reconcile the words that the president said not too long ago, just a couple of days ago, saying we had complete air superiority over Iran. Their air defenses had been decimated. Basically, now we're seeing the exact opposite of that. And there's no doubt that Iran's capabilities have been degraded with 15,000 U.S. strikes on the country. But first of all, explain to us what could bring down an F-15, and are you surprised that Iran still had that capacity to shoot down an F-15 despite our president going out on national television and telling the American people their air defenses are decimated and we have complete control over their skies?
Well, that's why he should never have said that, because he overstated it. I mean, it's the fact that we've already flown something like 15,000 sorties successfully without any kind of shoot down is a remarkable feat. You know, our military is the best in the world, you know, to go this long, but it doesn't take much. It takes a bad guy to jump out of a cave with a shoulder-fired ground-to-air missile, and that's all it takes to shoot down an aircraft, you know, and there are thousands and thousands of those. I mean, this is a huge country, 2.5 times the size of Texas. There's all kinds of places to hide. It's a mountainous region, as you know. I mean, essentially, it's a fortress, you know, with mountains all the way around. Very, very difficult place to penetrate. And, you know, they've got lots of places to hide. So for him to go out and say, well, we completely decimated their capability to do anything like this is absolutely ludicrous. And we're now seeing the results of that they still have capability. They still have missiles. They damn near hit Diego Garcia 2,300 miles away a week ago. They continue to pester us. They continue to own the Strait of Hormuz. They continue to maintain the will to fight. They hold a lot of cards. And oh, by the way, we still haven't found where they put all the highly enriched uranium and the centrifuges that can bring it up to weapons grade. There's a lot to be there's a lot that still has to happen here, and we're a long way from being able to come back and claiming any sort of victory.
Nancy, General Anderson listed a few of the very critical metrics of what a successful operation would look like that have still not been achieved. Do you think Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have underestimated Iran's capabilities? I mean, Iran was by far the most formidable opponent in the Middle East that the U.S. was going to ever face. They've been preparing for this moment. They came up with a defense strategy. They have decentralized their capabilities in the event of a decapitation strike. And you had the President of the United States say that this war was going to be over in maybe a few days or maybe a couple weeks. And here we are, 5 weeks into it, with the president saying maybe 2 or 3 more weeks and American service members being shot out of the sky.
I think you raise a great point that there is an underestimation of what kind of foe Iran would pose. The assumption being that the killing of the Ayatollah would lead to the fall of the regime, and of course that has not happened. And now you're seeing the United States adjust to it. The fact that the president didn't outline what an end state would look like for Iran, I think speaks to the adaptation that is happening and trying to figure out some kind of off-ramp in which the United States can claim some kind of victory. The challenge is there are no good options. If the U.S. were to leave right now and declare victory, it would keep a regime in place that's been emboldened. If it were to try to negotiate, it would be doing so in a position of great distrust on both sides. If it continues escalating, it doesn't guarantee that the war ends, and it costs the U.S. more in terms of munitions and risks to U.S. Troops. And so the options before the United States are not great and not promising of the kind of timeline that the president outlined. I think 2 or 3 weeks refers to the amount of time the president thinks that needs to be in place for military targets. But even if the war stopped tomorrow, the impact of this war goes on for months. And in some cases, when, for example, the U.S. time to restock its munitions, years. So weeks refers to a very, very narrow part of this campaign, potentially, the military strikes. The economic impact, the change it portends for the Gulf, those are much longer propositions. And so I think as we're talking about the war, we haven't heard the United States outline an end state, and I think they haven't given the American public a clear timeline in terms of impact of this war. They focus more so on a military campaign, which is just one part of this.
Katty Kay, there's a Monday deadline that is rapidly approaching that Trump has given the Iranians to open the Strait of Hormuz. Our Arab allies in the region are more alienated and isolated. They're feeling the brunt of this war, perhaps more so than any other country, with the exception of what is happening both inside of Iran and Lebanon. Our European allies are basically not wanting to partake in this. They're negotiating perhaps independently with the Iranians on how to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, leaving America and Israel a little bit more isolated on the world stage. How are our allies viewing all of this? What is the viewpoint from Europe and various capitals in Europe as to how this is playing out?
Well, we had a French tanker go through the Strait of Hormuz, which is the first time a nationally flagged tanker from a European country certainly has gone through just today, which shows that there have been some negotiations between European capitals and the Iranians to get the oil out. My understanding from conversations with people in Europe is that there was obviously a lot of skepticism about the end game of this war and the reasons for going into it. But the main reason that Europeans and other NATO countries have not wanted to get involved and have not answered President Trump's appeals with a yes is that they were concerned about the military aspect of this, that there is not a viable military solution, as far as I understand, they feel, for reopening the Straits of Hormuz. And yes, they were annoyed about Greenland, and yes, they've been annoyed about President Trump's treatment of his allies around things like tariffs and other things that he said in Ukraine, but really it was to do with the specifics of this war, and there was just not any political upside for European leaders to get involved in this war. In fact, it would just have been far too politically risky for them because there's no support for it amongst European populations. The Gulf states are a slightly different issue. Having not wanted the president to get involved in the war, they're now in a situation where they don't want any daylight between them and Donald Trump because they really want the White House to stay in the war, paradoxically. I mean, what they don't want is to be left with a regime that is wounded but still has an ability to attack them. So I think the reason you saw the speech the other night turn into something that really didn't deliver very much was because the president is getting so many different opinions